Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SMPTE Annual Technical Conference here in Los Angeles. And you're at the RIST Demo booth here, where we're demonstrating RIST. At the moment, there don't seem to be any people around in the booth, so I guess I'll just have to continue on and give you my presentation. People have asked, how does everybody work together, and how do all these different companies come together to develop RIST, and how is RIST put together? So I put a little presentation together on that, and here we go. So how did the industry put their differences aside to develop the reliable internet stream transport suite of technical recommendations? We'll start with the history of RIST. It all began at IBC in 2016. I was walking around the floor of IBC looking at stuff and came across quite a few real good technologies for sending contribution quality live video over the internet. Unfortunately, I found over 20 different, mostly incompatible devices for transmitting live contribution via the internet. They didn't talk to one another. So if you were going to send stuff, you had to have exactly the same make, model, and even version of firmware on both sides. I wasn't the only one. Several members of the VSF also decided that something needed to be done about it, because they walked around the show floor and also noticed that there were some issues with compatibility. So go forward a couple of months to VidTrans 2017 in Marina del Rey at the Marriott. And the VSF discussed the need for an interoperable method of contribution transport. In fact, a formal request was made by ESPN, the folks there were thinking exactly the same thing. And so they brought it up to the board, and the board decided that we needed to do something. Coincidentally, Thomas Edwards, who was at Fox at the time, gave a totally unrelated paper in which he discussed reliable internet stream transport. The paper didn't have to do exactly with what we were talking about, but I really liked the name. It was catchy. And so I went to Thomas and asked him if I could use the name. He said, yeah, he was just using it for this paper and he had no other use for it. So it was fine for I took the name, and RIST was born. So a couple months later, we hit NAB 2017. And of course, as we know in this industry, IBC and NAB are key dates when everything seems to move forward. And with NAB coming up, we decided we should have an organizing meeting to deal with RIST. So on April 13th of 2017, 2 weeks before NAB, we had our first RIST organizing call. And on April 27th during NAB, we had our first RIST meeting during breakfast. This is our first annual meeting that we have at NAB at the Westgate during breakfast. And we talked about it and started doing our work then. So who is involved with RIST? Well, the two main entities involved with RIST are the Video Services Forum and the RIST Forum. Now, let me explain what those entities do. First, we'll tell you with who's in there. So the Video Services Forum, you can see here, is a listing of all their current members. I'm not going to bother reading the names. They're on the screen here. I'll leave it up for a second, and you can certainly go to their website at vsf.tv to get more information. The RIST Forum also has a lot of members, and many of them overlap. And here's a listing of their members. You can go to RIST.tv for information on the RIST Forum. Now, of course, I'm sure you're saying, well, what do these organizations do? Well, I will tell you. Here's how everyone works together. We have the Video Services Forum. They oversee the RIST Activity Group. That they developed the technical recommendations for RIST, and the chairman of the group is myself. Those recommendations, which is TR06-1 and 2, original and the revision of R1, were then published. But what happens? Well, they then go to the RIST Forum. The RIST Forum is the marketing entity and education entity having to do with RIST. They're the ones who inform everybody of what is out there and try to explain to them why RIST is the format to use and educate them on the process. The RIST Activity Group, which you're all welcome to join, meets every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time online. Now, there is one catch. You must be a member of the Video Services Forum to attend. But if you'd like to be involved with the development of RIST, feel free to go to vsf.tv and you'll get information on joining the VSF. The RIST Forum meets every other Wednesday after the RIST activity group, and they meet at 12 noon online. Go to RIST.tv for information on how to join that group. So here's a timeline of RIST. So we began early on in February of 17, prior to NAB, and with our organizing. We had our first simple draft in April of 2018, first interop May of 2018, simple draft of simple profile in July of 2018, first public interop September 2018, simple profile published October 2018, commercial products available April of 2019. It was also at that point that RIST Forum was formed. The main profile draft and interop in September of 2019, and in March of this year, 2020, the main profile published and commercial product is available. So why does RIST keep evolving? Well, because the technology keeps changing. And as software develops, you need to advance it. So we originally came up with TR06-1. We then came up with TR06-2, which was the main profile. But we found out some subtle changes that needed to be made to TR06-1. So they were changed. It's software. It's like your iPhone and everything else. You don't want, if something can be done better, it's easy enough to go back and make the subtle changes to improve the quality of the product. The video TR06-2 came out this year of August 5th of 2020, and when it was formally published. And we're working on TR06-3, which is the advanced profile, which we hope to have available for VidTrans 2021. Now, when we made the changes to TR06-1, there's been many people who said, why did you change it? Well, the only difference between the original 2018 version of the simple profile and the current document is the addition of the operational RTT echo message, documented in section 5.2.6, and some other subtle changes. That's the advantage of RIST. Being that it's software-based, as we find ways of improving it, we can issue updates to it so the manufacturers can improve their product and issue a software update to the end users, improving the quality of the product that's already in the field. So here's a list of the profiles: the simple profile, which is available, the main profile, and the advanced profile. I will go over some of the stuff that's coming in the advanced profile. The main profile and the simple profile are out there, and you can see what's in there. So the advanced profile, which is under development, we are going to add auto configuration, make it as plug and play as possible. Dynamic reconfiguration. Congestion control. We all know the internet is a place where you don't have QoS, so it will need to be able to deal with the problems of the internet and what happens if it gets overloaded in a smart manner. VBR support. Internet satellite hybrid. This is one of the things I am in favor of and championing because of changes that are happening to the C-band satellite space and the need to go to KU and KA, which is not resilient to rain fade. With adding a RIST layer to it, KU and KA could be resilient to rain fade. Common management, API and MIB. Timing control based on a common clock. VPN functionality. We are looking at several different methods of VPN. I believe some of the other papers being presented here will go into detail on that. IP payload compression. This is not the video compression. This is the compression of the ancillary data and other things that are in the payload. RIST is not just for video. So if you are sending other data, other ancillary data, whatever that might be, there are compression methods that can get that data rate down. That's very important for sending over the internet. RIST tunnel, ARQ. IGMP listening. And rendezvous point for automated firewall transversal. The issue there is, are you going into a firewall or out of a firewall? This way, you can have a common meet-me point, and both your sender and your receiver could potentially be an outgoing firewall, which in a corporate an outgoing signal, which in a corporate firewall situation is much easier to handle and much easier to get through the firewall. So by going to a common cloud-based Meet Me location as an option rather than a straight peer-to-peer. That can help individuals who have firewall transversal issues. We did a demo at VidTrans 2020, as you can see here. And if you go, and here's a still shot of it, if you actually go to YouTube and search for RIST VidTrans 2020, you will see the demo on YouTube, which was a live capture of multiple vendors interoperating. It's available out there at 4K. And so you can go to YouTube and do a search for it. Once again, it's VidTrans 2020 demo or VidTrans 2020 RIST demo. Either of those will find it in the YouTube search engine. For additional information, you can go to vsf.tv or RIST.tv, which will give you information from the Video Services Forum and RIST and the RIST Forum. That's all I have. Thank you very much. And now on to the next presentation.